Before philosophers, then there are philosophies. The world had infinite mysteries. There was the question of religion, the question of science, government, the world, the universe, and reliance. To question these incredible mysteries came important people from the golden tales of history: Gutenberg, Elizabeth, Thomas More, Martin Luther, Charles V, and Henry Tudor. Starting in the late 15th century, the merchant class began to rise in Italy. They promoted new ideas like individualism and even changed the power to a thing called secularism. Humanism was an important ideal, and they finally realized this ideal was a steal. And the people even started to skepticize about things that were happening in front of their eyes. They questioned the church. Did it really hold the power, or is it just some place with a bell and a tower? Humans were the focus like the gods up above, and for the first time in a while they flew high like a dove. Each individual was given praise. This was the start of the artistic phase. Culture, art, and writing spread. These ideas all exploded right out of their heads. Derived from the merchants' new empowerment came separation of the church and government. This secular society came from the new mentality.
Within 4 centuries, Europe created many enemies. They experienced change. They expanded their range. They started to think of ideas that were strange.
Is the world all flat, or is it round and fat? What is the universe? Where is the planet Earth? Is it the central one, or does it go around the sun?
Is there heaven? Is there hell? Or does your soul just die as well? Even in the Renaissance, change was triggered as a response from new culture and ideas. This change brought food like pizzerias.
Christians changed the way they worshipped, modifying religion with a painful whip. Resulting from all these changes in power, ideas branched off like a big cauliflower.
These 400 years sometimes ended in tears, but these changes through time are the reasons we ride.
Gutenberg created the printing press, allowing us to make multiple copies.
I'm impressed.
His invention made mass production of literature available, spreading education for the parents.
Not so terrible.
Since production increased, prices went down, and books were now affordable all around town. It gave Europe many great advantages, from spreading word language to cultural outlandishness. His new invention made literacy more common and made peasants seem as smart as lawmen. He even made a Bible titled after himself that the peasants could read and stack on their shelf. This gave the peasants room to criticize about the church's bad behavior in all of their lives.
What is truth?
Truth is something so noble that if God could turn aside from it...
What? I totally get it.
The peasants demanded a religious reform, and Gutenberg's Bible was a real art form.
Within 4 centuries, Europe created many enemies. They experienced change. They expanded their range. They started to think of ideas that were strange.
Is the world all flat, or is it round and fat? What is the universe? Where is the planet Earth? Is it the central one, or does it go around the sun?
Is there heaven? Is there hell? Or does your soul just die as well? Even in the Renaissance, change was triggered as a response from new culture and ideas. This change brought food like pizzerias.
Once Europe reached the 15th century, it was time to replenish the continent's treasury, and people learned to steal from others to fill their need, consequently learning about selfishness and greed. New lands promised goods that were complementary. They didn't understand that they were supplementary. Money lost its value due to sudden growth, and people couldn't pay the money. It's a tough road to hoe. They went overseas on their exploration. They spread disease to the natives during invasion. And following the light of the sun, we left the old world. Millions died, although they tried to survive, and the Europeans slaughtered life after life. They lacked the jurisdiction to invade the native land, but they ripped the native rights right out of their hands. A cultural exchange came from the exploration. Foods were traded between the two nations. Although it looked like Europe gained from this voyage, Europe lost money from this overall annoyance.
There's a man named Luther who believed in the truth. He didn't follow Catholicism throughout his youth, until one dark night he survived a lightning storm. Then he followed devoutly till his need for reform. But he couldn't ignore the church's corruption. He had the 95 Theses and called a major eruption. Luther refused to repent of things that he said, although such an act could make him wind up dead. So Charles V put Luther on trial, though Luther had no time for regret or denial. At the Diet of Worms, he faced the prosecution and held his ground despite the threat of execution. But before they decided his fate, German princes saved him from the hate. His beliefs were titled Lutheran, redefining the borders of sin. He changed Christianity so much you wouldn't believe it, challenged the right of the church and how people perceive it.
I am Henry VIII, the Mad Dad's the 7th. But when we ruled the throne, England wasn't a present. I needed a son. I tried to have one, but my wife Catherine failed to produce me even one. It was the king's great matter, as the people say. I tried to force Catherine, but the Pope wouldn't let me. I had to go to Parliament to pass a set of laws that would take away the Pope's power over the church and the law. I tried to pass a law, the Act of Succession, that sent my new wife and Boleyn's children to succession. They'd take up the throne after I died, but little did I know Anne wouldn't provide, and produced Elizabeth, a Protestant kid, but she was a girl, so not a good fit. Next I married Jane Seymour. I liked her a lot, and she bore me Edward, the son I finally got. It's too bad they both quickly died, and poor little Edward barely had a chance to try. After Jane died, I married Anne of Cleves, and it's funny how her name rhymes with leaves. But she had no children, and neither did the next, Catherine Howard and Parr, with just some rejects. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. This was how the 6 of them lost their chance to thrive.
Henry's good friend was Thomas More, who refused to throw religion to the floor. So when England broke with Rome, he left his family at his home and was subject to the Tower all alone. All throughout his imprisonment, he kept refusing to relent. With his fate hanging in the balance, he managed to maintain a stubborn silence. Despite when things reached the worst, I died a king's servant, but God's first.
My name is Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen. They gave me that name because I can keep it clean. I run around teasing suitors who really need tutors. I will show you what England can be. I will refuse to be married just to keep the strength of power. I'll bring England to peace and let it blossom like a flower. I'll pass the Act of Supremacy right after the Act of Uniformity. I will have but one mistress, and that is myself. Not even Robert Dudley, the Earl himself. I ruled for exactly 46 years, and I tried to save England from shedding any tears. I had an evil cousin, Mary Queen of Scots, who was going to kill me, or that's what she thought, until I finally caught her execution a blur. Goodbye, Cousin Mary, I won't miss you, I'm sure. I sent out sea dogs in search of Spanish treasure. They brought back 600,000 pounds in measure. I'm politically clever, and when I pull the lever, England will go down on the ground forever.
Charles I was a violent man. He ordered a war against his own clan. The divine right of kings, the rule of law, were not enough to cover his flaw. Through oath, trial, and execution, Charles precursed the scientific revolution.
Revolution, a forcible overthrow of government or social order in favor of a new system. The long-term impacts of the scientific revolution were great enough to change people's thoughts of evolution. People questioned authority in organizations and the monarchy. They came to a lurch when told to believe in the church, so they searched until they found some evidence that made them smirch.
They started to believe that mankind was a machine, reliably operating with something called genes. They were not sure if nature had laws, or whether there was pattern in the world like squalls. These questions all arose until one day, philosophers came up with ideas and said, hey, the earth is the earth, they said with mirth. The government matters or else will fall to tatters.
The philosophers all gathered in places called salons, debating ideology and science till dawn.
Cesare Beccaria!
A million ideas about laws, truth, reason, injustice, and equality. John Locke had similar thoughts, but natural rights of people, liberty, and freedom.
It was a paradigm shift, the Greek word for pattern. The way of thinking was changed and science started to matter. 3 monks were in a monastery one afternoon, and one of them asked,
How many teeth does a baby horse have?
First monk said, let's consult the Holy Father. The second monk said, oh no, let's consult the Bible. But the third monk had a brilliant idea, saying, let's go down to the farmer down the street so we can see ya. The third monk's head was chopped off swiftly. Just because one monk thought differently, he was punished for his way of logical thinking.
People thought just like this when it came to change. They resisted to any kind of paradigm shift. But logic found a way through this kind of bias. New ideas gained support and changed the view of science. The scientific method gained popularity, asking questions to regain clarity. Geocentric solar system centered around the Earth, starting set by Ptolemy and Aristotle.
Planets and objects revolve around the Earth, each circling in epicycles in a spiral form. Then Copernicus came and turned it all around, because the Ptolemaic system was too flawed. There were too many exceptions that God never would have made. Heliocentric systems go around the sun and account for the anomalies of the other one. But Christians didn't believe this new theory,
So dico brahe!
tried to join them as one, suggesting planets went around the sun and the sun around the Earth.
but it didn't account for the math required, so Kepler repositioned space around the sun. Galileo found moons around the planets, and Newton pieced together the laws of motion. And the power of thought found new emphasis, bring society to where it is today.
Hey!